Good morning. The reading for today is from Mark 2:23 through 3:6. One Sabbath day, Jesus took a walk through the grain fields, and the disciples began to pick ears of grain as they went along. The Pharisees said to Jesus, "Look, why are they doing something on the Sabbath day that is forbidden?" And Jesus replied, "Did you never read what David did in his time of need when he and his followers were hungry? How David went into the house of God when Abiathar was high priest and ate the loaves of offering, which only the priests are allowed to eat, and how he also gave some to those with him." Then Jesus said to them, "The Sabbath was made for people, not people for the Sabbath. That is why the chosen one is ruler even of the Sabbath." Returning to the synagogue, Jesus met someone who had a withered hand. Now the religious authorities were watching to see if Jesus would heal the individual on the Sabbath day, as they were hoping for some evidence to use against Jesus. He said to the afflicted one, "Stand and come up front." Then he turned to them and said, "Is it permitted to do a good deed on the Sabbath or an evil one, to preserve life or to destroy it?" At this they remained silent. Jesus looked around at them with anger, for he was deeply grieved that they had closed their hearts so. Then Jesus said to the person, "Stretch out your hand." The other did so, and the hand was perfectly restored. The Pharisees went out and at once began to plot with the Herodians, discussing how to destroy Jesus.
Will you pray with me? God of abiding grace, open our minds and our hearts to your word this day. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you. For you, O God, are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Will you do something for me? It's simple, I promise. We're going to chant. Well, really, we're just going to repeat one word when I hold up this card. And we're going to do it to this beat. Shall we add some dynamics? Okay. I'm going to stand back another foot. When it's down here towards the driveway, softer. And when it's up here towards the road, louder. Pretty good. Thank you. I put it on both sides because usually there's a choir and I'm like, how many directions do we have to go? So, shall we try it with a new word? Same directions. I bet you can't guess. You guys good. That felt different, didn't it? It sounded different too. Do you ever get tired of saying no? Not just saying it. It's feeling like we have to say it. Like the person we're having to deny should somehow already know the answer. would never have asked if he or she were paying attention or thinking about the rules. Can I stay out past my curfew tonight? Oh, and can I take the car? Can I have a few friends over for the weekend while you and Mom are away? Can I go? May I? Can I try? You know you've said it. Say it with me. And how about hearing it? No to your hopes and ideas. It gets old, doesn't it? And discouraging. And too often, whether we are on the saying side or the hearing side, no can become like a reflex, a go-to response in advance of or even instead of taking the time to consider what's proposed. But how about yes? How about yes? The room felt different when we were chanting yes, didn't it? Yeah. It isn't just the word. It's what it represents. Acceptance, encouragement, affirmation, validation. Yes, your idea has merit. Yes, I trust your choices. Yes, I think you can do it. So jump back with me, if you will, to that day with Jesus when he and his disciples were out walking, pulling blades of grass and snacking on them as they just wandered through the fields. "You can't do that," the lawkeeper cried. "It's the Sabbath." You've heard the phrase, "When in Rome, act like a Roman." Yeah. In this instance, when with lawyers, talk like a lawyer. So Jesus justifies his disciples' mild transgression by citing precedent. Jesus said to the Pharisees, "Have you never read what King David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need of food?" David wasn't king yet, but that's okay. "He entered the house of God when Abiathar was high priest and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for any but the priests to eat. And he gave some to his companions." Relevant, comparable, and even more egregious prior experience made acceptable by a credible source of authority. If King David did it, it's got to be okay. Except for the fact that Jesus is no King David, which the Pharisees want to emphasize and with which Jesus affably agrees. Here again from our reading. Then Jesus said to them, "The Sabbath was made for humankind, and not humankind for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." Listen to that with the Pharisees' ears. Diplomacy and self-preservation were not among Jesus' four presenting traits. But he was all about cutting to the chase and pushing people to get over themselves. There is value in using one's knowledge and education, experience to bring clarity to that which is complicated when you're dealing in your own area of expertise. That's why we look to engineers and scientists, doctors, lawyers, teachers, even ministers, to give us direction and insight in their particular fields. What do you do when you want to build a bridge or educate your children, or take your case to court. You want people who have the credentials, but you also want to know that they know what to do with what they've learned, especially when things go south. There are times when the rules can be helpful guidelines. And there are times when strict adherence will yield exactly the wrong results. Jesus is making that same point here to the ones who believe that they are the experts. Don't confuse the practice with the purpose. Consider why we are being asked to be observant, and be clear about the source of your authority. Of course, the Pharisees used this exchange to strengthen their claim that Jesus was overstepping his authority and his knowledge of the law. Have you ever seen the television show Undercover Boss? I don't even think it's still playing, but once upon a time it was. Have you seen it? Okay. Is there a reason I'm ringing? Okay. That's the other thing that's new in every church I go to. I made Fairport pound last week. Ooh, sorry. Anyway, Undercover Boss, you've seen it. Okay. Undercover Boss is when the owner of a company takes on a different role in order to find out how the firm is running and what his or her employees really think. Quite often, the insight that they get is about what the employees think about them and about what drives their decisions. And quite often, those bosses are shocked and dismayed and move to take actions to get perceptions as well as day-to-day function back on track. That's pretty much what we have happening here with the ultimate boss. Jesus, getting us to rethink. We humans tend to skew toward liking control. True? Yeah, maybe a little bit, yeah. We humans tend to skew towards liking control and to assuming that our solutions are sufficient to the situation at hand. And so we say, you can help. No to people and approaches and ideas and behavior that doesn't match what we think is right. And we do that on the basis of our own authority, backed up by those who agree with us, and by all that is familiar to us. After all, it's worked before. It'll work again. Because that's what, you know these words, we've always done. But I gotta ask you, what would happen if we started with yes? What if new and different were presumed to merit exploring and potentially be worth doing? What if our first assumption was that those with the suggestions are as smart and well-intentioned as us? What if we tried stepping around to the side, not just out of the way, but alongside? The one who's proposing the strange and discomforting approach. What would it take to have us look the same way, even just for a moment, to see where our parallel views might align? Sometimes there's more than one way to achieve a mutually desirable end. Sometimes the process that the players craft together has more value even than the outcome. Sometimes everyone learns something when we can let go of our inclinations to insist on our own way. Where's the greater good? Was Jesus any less holy for letting his friends eat when they were hungry? Do you think he offended God by healing outside of the normal office hours? The psalmist writes, "O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with my ways. For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." If that's the case, if God who made us, every one of us, truly knows and loves us, even when we're not at our best, and if God, who made us in God's own image on purpose, with purpose, and intending that we should make our own decisions, if that God strives to say yes to us with forgiveness, acceptance, affirmation, and encouragement, don't you think we could try just a little harder to do that ourselves? In a world that reigns rules for everything and everyone, maybe an extravagant act of faith this week might be to make space and let God reign. Say yes. I meant that literally.